Hey friend, Henry Flowers here, Powerful Living Outreach Ministries, coming at you today with a word that says, listen, sometimes things are just hard, and sometimes you got to choose to do the thing that you don't want to do because it'll bring greater reward in the future. Anywhere you want to find a podcast, you can find this podcast. You can look us up, Powerful Living, YouTube. You can look us up on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because you want to get these podcasts done on a daily basis. Let me tell you what Powerful Living is all about. See, Powerful Living is about taking your life from the ordinary to extraordinary. And in this podcast today, I'm going to be highlighting this idea that to be somebody who is in Christ, listen, that is to be somebody who does the hard thing. We have a great reward waiting for us in eternity, and I'm ready any day to be with Jesus on the other side. I believe Paul was exactly right. Now understand what he said. He said, I like being with y'all. I like being here on this earth, but trust me, I'd much rather be in heaven with Jesus. And so I understand that there's a great reward coming, but great rewards are not given to people who do easy things. It's just not. If you take a look at Matthew chapter 36, that'll be the passage that I'll be sharing with you today. But just understand, if you want to get in touch with us, you can contact us, powerfulliving2022@gmail.com. If you got show ideas, you got comments, feel free to let me know. We're meeting on Tuesday nights in the upper room at General Dentistry, 5616 Wolf Pen Pleasant Hill Road in the Cincinnati area, right off of 275, just a block or two away from Milford High School, Milford Junior High School. We're right there in the upper room, General Dentistry, 7 p.m. on Tuesday nights. You may want to make sure and call RSVP, let us know, send us a text. You're going to be there. Text, what is our number? I don't even know our phone number. I gave it to you on one of the other podcasts. I don't remember that number. I don't use it often enough. But what we want to do at Powerful Living Outreach Ministries is that my job, my hope, and my prayer, and my goal in ministry is to help people go from living an ordinary life to extraordinary. Jesus called us to live an extraordinary life when he said, listen, there's a thief. He's coming to do three things: kill, steal, and destroy. But I've come that you have life and have it more abundantly. Literally translated, it means to have a rich and satisfying life. Why is it that many of us as believers don't do that? Why is it that too many of us don't have rich and satisfying lives? One reason, and one in particular, is because too often we have powerful church services and we listen to powerful sermons, and it never translates into powerful living. That's a problem. And so there are principles that you grab a hold of, and there are ways of being that you have to create in your life in order to have a rich and satisfying life. And Jesus says, listen, that's what I want for you to have. I came so you can have a rich and satisfying life. It ain't just about dying and going to heaven and being with Jesus. He says, I want you to do some powerful things here on the earth. Now, how do we know that that's true? You have to begin to take a look at Jesus' life. Did he have a rich and powerful life? Did he have a satisfying life? I think he did. I think Jesus waded through the waters of this living and created a wake of salvation that'll ripple throughout eternity. He redeemed the entire whole of mankind with sacrifices that he was willing to make because he was willing to do something hard, something that he did not want to do. And many of us as believers, man, we just don't want to do the hard thing too often. And we say we want a more powerful life, and we say we want to be more effective in life. And we get mad at people when they talk down about church or about the Christian faith. You get mad at people. But people are responding to Christianity and to Christians out of what they experience from us, because whether they admit it or not, they know that we should be different. You've heard the quote from Mahatma Gandhi. It's attributed to him. He says, listen, I love your Christ. I don't like many of your Christians. He's talking about his personal experience with those who call themselves Christians. You saw the video where the lady, the news reporter, news anchor is talking about, why are you always talking about God? I don't care. And she went on this huge diatribe, just emotional. Man, she was emotional and she was angry and it was time to bash Christianity. You know what I hear from her? Out of that whole diatribe, you know what I hear from her? Well, two things. I do hear that she should not be a news reporter, because she obviously is no longer able to be unbiased. Why are you that upset and willing to bash one specific religion? I bet you wouldn't do that on the Muslim religion. I bet you wouldn't bash the Jewish faith like that. I bet you wouldn't do it, especially now. People learning their lessons about messing with Jewish faith. You get to say what you want to say. You got freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of consequences. But it seems like now it's open season on Christianity. So one of the things that I do hear that I learned about that diatribe that she went on about, she's tired of people mentioning their God and she doesn't care, and all this kind of emotional trip she went on. You know, those news reporters are supposed to be unbiased and able to just report things, and you're supposed to not fall into an emotional place where you begin to bash a whole community of people. That's a whole people group. If Jews are a people group, Christians are a people group. If Muslims are a people group, then so are Christians. Wow, it's amazing. I wonder how much backlash she received. So that's one of the things that I get from that diatribe. But two, this is the more important thing that I get from that diatribe that she went on. You know why she went on that diatribe? She went on that diatribe because the people who claim to be Christians are some of the most hypocritical in behavior sometimes. And what she was doing was comparing the things that we say we're supposed to be about as opposed to the things that we actually do. That was the crux of her frustration, is that you guys say you're different and you say your faith is different, but you ain't different. So a rich and satisfying life comes with a reward. He says there's a reward when you have gone through this earth and done the hard things. He says there's great reward waiting for us. And so it's like, dude, loving people is hard. And that's what we've been called to do. Loving people is hard. And it's the hard things that get the reward. Nobody ever got a reward for doing the easy thing. And so here we are, pressed by just worldly living every day, especially in your relationships with your friends and on your job. But you know what? Your relationships at home, that's really where you get pressed the most, is where you have those relationships at home that try you the most. People that say they're supposed to love you the most are the ones that give you the toughest time in life. And that's when God is watching you the most, because you have the best opportunity to show Christ, the thing that you say you study and discipline yourself in. The God that you say you love, he should show up. The Spirit of God is supposed to show up in your life during the hardest times, and especially in those relationships. Man, these last couple of days, I had the hardest time that I never thought I'd have in a relationship. My wife came down sick, and I'm talking about sick, like thrown up all over the place, and like can't move, slept for 8 to 10, 12 hours at a time, couldn't eat, couldn't make it to, had to have help to go to the bathroom. And guess who was on call? It was me. It was hard. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Not, you know, I think I'm a helpful person. I'm just not very sympathetic. Like people need, like when you need a caretaker, like nurses have a different gift. They just have the gift to be able to awe and woo and sympathize and just make you feel like there's somebody who cares about you and all this kind of stuff. Like nurses have the ability to do that. That's not my gift. I don't know that I have the gift to take care of people like that and be sympathetic. And because those 2 days, like it was hard, like trying to, be there for her and vomiting, make sure she didn't choke, and, cleaning it up and cleaning her up. And like this was 2 days. Not to mention, I'm in the transportation business. This happened Saturday and Sunday when she was down. As a minister, you already know what my Sunday can be like. But on Saturday and Sunday in the transportation business, those are 2 of the busiest days of the week. And I could not work. She had to be taken care of. She was down. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to go about my business and let her stick it out on her own? Or am I going to stop what I'm doing? And even though I don't like what I have to do, am I going to go ahead, bite the bullet, do what has to be done, even though I don't want to do it? You see, I seem to remember a passage of scripture where Jesus, our Savior, who gave everything for us to provide this salvation for us, it says, this is Matthew chapter 26, when he was praying, he said, Lord, let this cup pass me if it's possible. He's thinking about the time where next step is they coming to get me. They're going to beat me and torture me and call me things. King of the Jews, this creation of mine is going to hang me on a cross, and I got to do this in order to die to pay the price for their sins. And he says in his humanity, because he was 100% God, 100% man, all together, all at one time, it says that he asked and prayed to the Father that this cup pass me. He said, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. My friend, listen, I believe there is no lack of virtue in facing a problem that you don't want to face. I don't believe there's no lack of virtue. I think it's just the opposite. I believe that when you do the thing that you don't want to do, there's virtue and blessing in that. Man, I did not want to take care. For 2 days, I had to take care of my wife. I didn't want to do it. I would love to have had a nurse come in there and take care of it. Why? Because I'm a person of schedule, planning. I got stuff to do. Blah, blah, blah. I got things on my calendar. That's what gets me going. That's what makes me feel accomplished. Now, of course, I love my wife and I don't want any harm to come to her. But I'm just saying at that point, it wasn't available for me to go and get a nurse. Oh, check this out. Did I tell you this part? Not to mention taking care of her for 2 solid days where she needed help going to the bathroom. She needed to be fed as she got to the point where she could eat something, preparing food for her, soup or whatever it was, crackers or whatever she could hold down, right? Making sure she stayed hydrated, checking her temperature. I made her some tea because I thought she had some kind of a stomach virus. And so the tea caused you to expunge something that's in your stomach, and that happened, and she recovered fairly quickly, right? And so these are things where I had to do for 2 days in a row. Forget your schedule, Henry, forget your schedule, forget your accomplishments, the things that you'd like to do to make you feel better about you. Forget that stuff. Lay aside. This woman needs you to take care of her for 2 days. I did not want to do it. By the way, did I tell you that we have 3 boys? Not 1, not 2, but 3. 13, 8, and 6, something like that. Right? Oh, yeah, 3 boys. It was just Saturday and Sunday. They needed to be taken care of full time. That ain't my ministry. That's her job. She does that very well. She takes care of the kids. She does a great job at that. I had to be thrown into that. Take care of them for these times. Feed them while I'm trying to take care of her and trying to take care of myself and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my mind while I'm home and taking care of these kids, and they're making noise, and this ain't my role that I normally play. And all of a sudden I'm thrust into doing something hard, and it's difficult, and for 2 days, and she ain't sleeping and I ain't sleeping because she ain't sleeping, and I got to take care of them. And then, oh, by the way, did I tell you 3 boys that have autism? 3 boys, autistic, and they making noise and doing things, and they busy, and they screaming, and they yelling, and you can't tell. Have you experienced children with autism? They don't just listen like that. They not typical. Okay, just do your study, do your research. Y'all, I'm just saying, this was hard. This was hard. It's a hard 2 days that I went through. And I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you what I went through. And so when Jesus says, listen, Lord, let this cup pass me, this is an illustration about how when God has called you to do something, believer, it's not most of the time going to be easy. Loving people ain't easy. And the reason why this lady was so frustrated, you can go look at the diatribe, the lady on YouTube. I'm tired of your God. I don't want to hear nothing about your God. You go and look and listen to her diatribe, and she went on. She was emotional, boy. She went in. And I believe that sentiment is there because people too many times experience those who say that they are Christians and supposed to be the most loving people on the planet. Most of the time, too many times, they experience hypocrisy through us. And those things shouldn't be so. And so God has called us to this lifestyle of servanthood. He says, love and serve one another. That's just not a brand. It's a command. We should be willing to do the hard thing. Listen, it's easy to love somebody that's easy to love. But how are we willing to do the hard thing when it's pressed upon us? Like, how willing are you to do the hard thing? That's what we've been called to do. Life is hard. Jesus says, in this world, you will have tribulation, trying times, tough times, battles. Spiritual warfare is at an all-time high. If you have not paid attention, then you are not looking with spiritual eyes. And all I would say to you is get ready, because things are coming to a head. People are beginning to be more and more selfish, more and more unloving, more and more worldly. The spiritual game is ramping up, and the powers that be are exposing themselves more and more lately, and things are going to get much worse. And so there's a remnant that God has on this planet that should be light in darkness. Like, we should be shining our light to the point where people look to us and say, wow, there's hope. People usually run toward the light. Shouldn't be running from it. And what should the light do? The light should expose darkness, not by just pointing the finger, but by being the antithesis of darkness. If the world is unloving, Christians should be loving. If the world is full of fear, the Christian should be loving. If the world is full of selfishness, Christians should be selfless. And that is a light that is the antithesis of darkness that exposes. Selflessness exposes selfishness. Love exposes fear. And so those are the things that should be a part of our lives and should mark us as believers. And I think we miss it too many times. And I think the world has been waiting on us and still waits on us to do the thing that we've been called to do. And I'm just telling you, it's okay that the hard thing is hard and that you don't want to do it. It's okay that you don't want to do the hard thing. I gave myself to be frustrated those last 2 days. Taking care of her, and she was, I don't know, she's deathly sick. She didn't have a fever, so I wasn't in fear for her life, but I didn't know what this could turn into. And I didn't know how long she was going to be down. But the idea behind it is that the thing that I did not want to do, I was willing to do because there was someone there that I say I love. And if you say you love somebody, love is something you do. And love is something you do, not even when it's hard. Love is something you do, especially when it's hard. When it's pulling you out of your comfort zone. When love requires you to do something that you don't usually do. When love requires you to do something that is taxing on your mind and on your patience, it's weighing on your back and it's heavy and you ain't sure you can make it through. When it's giving of yourself for somebody else. And that person on your job, it's easy to get along with the people that know how to get along. But that difficult person who is always on your nerve, always got something smart to say, always got something backhanded and slightful to do towards you, you've been required to love them. You've been required and called by God to do the hard thing. To serve them, not serve them to death, serve them to life. I dare you. Find a way to do something nice to them. When they talk bad about you, you talk well about them. I heard of an elder statesman in response to, this was back in the day, I can't recall who it was, this was back in the day, where someone came to an elder statesman as a politician or something, and I just figure he says, hey, this other statesman says you are a fool. How do you respond to that? And the man says, if so-and-so says that I'm a fool, well, then I must be a fool, because so-and-so is a very wise man. See, that's love that has nothing to do with the other person. That's love that says, I don't need to bite back because I've been bitten. I don't need to strike back because I've been stricken. That's not virtuous. That's not Christ. You see, to be willing to do something that you don't want to do is one of the first indicator of somebody who is a loving person. And it's very clear in scriptures. It says, how can you say you love God whom you have not seen, but you do not love your fellow man whom you see every day? And that person on your job, or that person in your family, or your friend, or your neighbor, always got something slight to say about you. How do you respond? I learned this some time ago where, when it came to people talking about you, and people always got something to say. They always got something to say. In whatever context, whatever arena you're in, people always got something to say about somebody else. I've just gotten to the point, because I know that God is looking at me all the time, listening to everything, and I know that scriptures say we're going to give account of every word that proceeds out of our mouth. Man, I've just gotten to the point where I won't say something about somebody that I wouldn't say if they were standing in the room listening to me. It helps me measure my response. And just the desire to be more loving is just hard. And I've given myself permission, just like I gave myself permission these last 2 days, that what I was doing was hard. I've given myself permission to not actually want to do it. I don't want to. Listen, I can roll my tongue with the best of them. Do you hear me? I can come back and clap back with the best of them. I promise you I can do that. And there may be a time for that. If God says it's time to clap back. Because Jesus certainly had his times of clapping back. And he also had his times where he did not defend himself. He did not accuse. He did not answer questions. He stood there in silence. Because there was work that needed to be done that did not require words or a clap back. That is love sometimes. And so what I'm saying to you, man, these past few days, and she's doing well now, and I made it through, but I'm just telling you, I gave myself permission to be frustrated. I gave myself permission to not like what I was doing, even in the midst of doing it. And I didn't make myself a bad person because of it. What I was doing was hard, and it was out of my comfort zone, and it wasn't my gift. And I made myself okay with being a little frustrated, but I did it anyway. And I acted loving throughout it. And I wasn't huffy and puffy about it. I wasn't nasty while I was doing it. She had no idea that I didn't want to do what I was doing. And when she thanked me, once she recovered and she tried to thank me while she was in the midst of it, she just didn't have much breath to be able to say much because she was really struggling. And I had the kids to take care of, so I didn't have time to sit there and, be listening to a whole bunch of, thank yous and that kind of stuff. I had stuff to do. But while she was going through that, it was hard. And when she recovered, I just didn't make a big deal of it. I said, hey, listen, I love you. Baby, I love you. You're welcome. You would have done the same for me. And if you wouldn't have, this is what I'm required to do. See, it's easy to do something for somebody who would do for you. But even if they wouldn't do it for you, what are you going to do when God tells you to do it? That's what separates us. Well, that's what should separate us. And so what I want you to get out of this is when Jesus says, hey, Lord, let this cup pass me. If there's any way that I cannot have to go through this suffering that I'm getting ready to go through, Lord, could you take it away? But nevertheless, not my will be done, Lord, but yours be done. Yeah. And so there are times where we've been challenged in our faith because the thing that you're doing is hard. And I'm saying to you, friend, that's where the reward is. Many of us as believers say, Lord, I just look forward to that day when the Lord says, come on, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of the Lord. It says, you've been faithful over a few things. Now let me make you ruler over much. Come and enter into the kingdom that is everlasting, where there shall be no end. But man, listen, he said, come on in, because he said, you've been faithful over a few things. You've been faithful over a few things. Your work is done. Your work has ended. The labor that you labored for me for so many years, that labor has paid off. Come and receive your reward. My friend, labor is what we should be about nowadays as believers. And the thing that we've been required to labor in causes us to do things that we don't want to do. And I think you need to give yourself permission to be frustrated, to be angry even, because people are tricked nowadays. It's hard to love the unlovely. People can try your patience, man. And it's funny how some of the ones that try your patience the most are the ones who will come to you asking for help during tough times of need. That's when there's an opportunity to be Christ, to be loving, to pay it forward. Give it to somebody who can never repay you. And give expecting nothing in return is what the scriptures say. And so, yes, I definitely know that if I was sick, I know my wife would take care of me, because that's who she is. She is a nurturer and a lover and a caretaker. Like, that's who she is. She takes care of her man. So it would be nothing if I got sick and down and couldn't move, that she would be there. I got no question that that would be so. But that wouldn't be her challenge, see, because that's her gift. See, the challenge comes when you've been challenged to do that thing that's outside of your gift, and he's pushed you past your comfort zone and say, do you love me? Feed my sheep. Do you love me really? Oh, go do this. Oh, it's easy to do the things that you're good at. Go do this if you love me. Mm-hmm. 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 It's easy to go talk to your neighbor that likes you, but you know that neighbor may look a little different than you, may be from a different place than where you're from, may talk a little different than you, may even have some ways of being that you didn't like, or that shows you that they don't like you. Go be loving toward them. That's where he's called you, you see, because that's where the reward is. You know, those of you who are like me, who studied martial arts for many years, one of the things that you may know, and if you haven't, then I'll share this with you and learn this, the highest form of martial arts is not the black belt or the red sash and all these different degrees that people think, you know, was kung fu, was jiu-jitsu. No. The highest form of martial arts, the greatest accomplishment in martial arts, is that you turn an enemy into a friend. Look it up. Fact check it. You don't believe me? Check it yourself. Turning an enemy into a friend. My friend, that is the highest level of combat, because the martial arts is looking through an eye that says, beyond the person, there's something on the inside. There's energy on the inside of that person that's at work that makes them do what I got to do, what they're doing. And so maybe I got to do what I got to do to take you down, right? And to neutralize you. But my ultimate goal should be not to neutralize you. My ultimate goal should be to win you. And winning you may require me to do the hard thing. Winning you may require me to do the thing that I don't want to do. But my friend, when you have won that person and you have turned an enemy into a friend, brother, sister, you have done something. And you have been Christ to that person. And so in those times when you're in the action of winning, I want you to give yourself permission to not enjoy it, because I didn't enjoy it. And I want you to do those things because it's the right thing to do, and because there's a reward in doing it. And so what? Of course you know there's a reward, and that should motivate you to do it. And you're not doing it just because of the reward, and you know that there's a reward coming. All of that's okay. You ain't got to be so super spiritual. Oh, I've been called to buffet myself, and this is the life of a believer. And man, listen, you ain't got to be spiritual and act like you like it. You cannot like it. Jesus says, let this cup pass me. Lord, this thing stinks what I'm about to do. I despise this shame. I don't want to do this. But because of these people, I got to do something to save these people. This is what you've been called me to do. Guess what, Lord? Not my will, but yours be done. Why? Because I know that there's a reward. And there's nothing that you need to act like you like it in the middle of it. But he's called you to do it. If you say you are his, and you show up different, and you be Christ to the world, and that thing cannot be comfortable, it cannot be easy, it cannot be fun. That's all right. But you know what it can be? It can be done. I'm a living witness. I did it. I made it through those 2 days. And her boys are fine. Her health is good. And she's recovering now. And I'm just telling you, those 2 days were hard. And I'd rather have been going about my business and going about my day and doing the thing that I normally do that makes me feel like I'm being productive. But I'm telling you, she needed me in those days. Those boys needed me in those days. And I showed up and I didn't like it. But I believe I did please God. And my friend, when it comes to powerful living, there is no greater accomplishment than pleasing God. Henry Flowers here, Powerful Living Outreach Ministries. I ain't going nowhere. I'm coming back.